Welcome to the Don't Count Me Out podcast. This program is dedicated to stroke survivors, loved ones, and caregivers, medical professionals, and anyone interested in learning more about this devastating disease and the warriors that face it every day. Our mission is to share stroke survivors' stories of inspiration and hope, form friendships and community, gain knowledge and insights, and the courage to dream and explore new avenues as we find our way back to living. So, my friends, the Don't Count Me Out podcast begins right now.
We've got somebody really interesting, and you may wonder why we're talking to someone who's not endured a stroke. But one of the reasons we've invited Roger Williams to be a guest on the show with us is he's pretty close to our neighborhood. He's had 2 heart attacks. We'll talk to him about that. But he's made some really major changes in his life. This may help you to kind of rethink where you are and set some goals for yourself as we go along. So Roger, we're not going to start back from when you were 4 years old. Maybe we will. I don't know.
I hope not.
Let's just find out a little bit about who you are. Where on earth did you come from? Because I know right now you're in Italy, and I don't think that's where you started.
It is not at all. I used to joke about the fact I never wanted to really come to Europe, and now I've been here for about 6 weeks, and I got 6 more weeks to go. So you never know what life's going to bring you. But I've been a youth development person, teacher for almost 30 years. And like a lot of people, got stuck in my house during the lockdown and gave me a lot of time to start thinking about things. And then in December of 2020, in the midst of all that, I had a heart attack. And that really got me thinking about where I found my self-worth and what I wanted to be known for in life. When you're faced with the kind of traumatic events that your audience and I have both faced, you kind of start looking at your life and you have choices to make. You can either reset or you can stay stagnant. And so I decided to reset my life, and I went to all my social media accounts and changed my work status to being the head crosser offer of my bucket list. And I wanted to be known for that instead of necessarily the work that I had been doing, who I sold my labor to and what I did to sell it. So I wanted to be known for how I lived my life and the things that I did in it, and the people that I grew relationships with became more important to me than necessarily my job.
As you were saying that, there was a vision that flashed in front of me for your headstone where it says, "Made it to heaven, check."
Check, there you go. That would be nice for sure. That would just really be nice. I would just be happy with he was a good guy. That would be good too. I would take that one for sure. Just being a good guy would be nice. So what I decided to do is focus on checking things off my bucket list. I had one in my head for a really long time, and things that I thought I wanted to do, but I had never written them down. So it was the first time I really sat down and wrote out that list of things that I thought I wanted to accomplish, or things that I wanted to do, or places I'd never been, relationships that I needed to rekindle or fix. And so I just wrote out this list. And in August of 2021, I started with a major task of doing the Camino de Santiago, which is a 790 kilometer trek across northern Spain. It had been in my head as something I wanted to do for 10, 15 years. And so I decided that, with doctor's approval, that I could go do that. And I did. So with some success. I definitely had some leg stuff, some tendonitis and tweaked knee for a couple of days. But, besides that, it's 15 to 18 miles a day, and you just go out there and you do it.
Tell people a little bit about what the way is about.
Yeah, the Camino de Santiago is an ancient pilgrimage that there's multiple routes that you can go through Spain, also Portugal, to Santiago de Compostela, which is in the western part of Spain and the area they call Galicia, which is a beautiful area. If you've ever been to the Pacific Northwest in the United States, it's a lot like that. Kind of rainy, but also very lush and green and smells good all the time. It's a great place. Traditional French way is the one that's 790 kilometers. It starts in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port and then goes all the way across northern Spain to Santiago de Compostela. It's said to be the traditional route that they took St. James' body to be buried in the cathedral at Santiago. So lots of people do the walk for different reasons. Some people do it pilgrimage. Some people do it for sport because they want to lose weight or just like hiking. For me personally, I did it because I wanted to meet people and widen my circle of friends around the world, and knew that I could do that coming on this trip. So it's not traditional hiking like you would think of, like the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail, where it's wilderness, sleeping in tents. You're basically going from city to city every single day and going through multiple little towns and villages along the way. So you don't have to carry water, you don't have to carry food, you don't even have to carry a tent or anything like that. You sleep in what they call albergues, or like a hostel each night. There are hotels you could stay, you could stay as fancy as you want or as cheap as you want. Yeah, it's a very communal activity. You meet people along the way. You walk with them for multiple days. Rare to start and finish with the same group of people, but it happens. It didn't happen for me, but I knew that going into it. Multiple different groups of people along the way, and my partner actually joined me the last 5 days to finish the walk. So she had traveled through Spain by herself for several weeks, and then met me in Sarria, Spain, and we finished together.
The terrain it's not just one level. Sometimes you're in mountains.
Yeah, if you start in Saint Jean Pied de Port, you hit the Spanish French Pyrenees right away, and it's a tough day. The first day is a tough day, and there's probably 3 or 4 days that are equally as tough or tougher. But for the most part, you'd be surprised. A lot of it is road work. A lot of it is on paved roads. A lot of it's flat. There's a section that they call the Meseta, which is basically from Burgos into Galicia, and it's very dry and humid. It's an arid desert type space, so not a lot of mountains or anything. It's real flat. So a lot of people, that's where they contemplate a lot, because there's not a lot to look at. So it varies a lot. The terrain varies a great deal.
My husband and I, we did not walk the way. However, we happened to be in Spain on a singing tour, and we basically sang at a lot of different churches, one of them being in Logrono, which is a beautiful little town. One of the things I love the most about Spain are the tapas. And tapas are little hors d'oeuvres that in the evening before you have dinner, you sit out in the square with hundreds of people that you don't even know.
Yep.
And have these tapas and maybe a little glass of wine or whatever your choice of beverage is, and just mingle with people. It's a wonderful thing to do. While we were there, we had a chance to sing in the Logrono, and it was about, I think it was about 6 or 7 at night, when a lot of the walkers had just gotten off the road and were settling in for the night, and they came to the concert. And I remember afterwards we were standing in the back talking to a group of people, and some of the people came up to us with tears in their eyes and said that they were so exhausted from the walk that they didn't think they could finish. After hearing the concert, it gave them the motivation they needed to keep going.
Yeah.
And I'll carry that in my heart forever.
Yeah. The Camino, there's a phrase, the Camino provides. Some people say the universe provides, but the Camino provides. And I have multiple stories for every day I walked. It was about 32 days. And one of my favorite things that was... It was an interesting story, because we got into Osorero, which is at the top of this really hard, difficult hill. And there was a bus of German folks that had been traveling around along the Camino, but they were taking the bus. They were not walking. And a lot of the pilgrims, this is what we call the people that walk, were kind of upset by it, because they would like come into the same towns we were, and they'd take over the eating establishments, and they'd take over the housing and all those kind of things. So, and for them being on a bus, people were a little frustrated. I walked all day, so I should have a little bit of a say on the accommodations that I get over people that took a bus. But I walked into the chapel at Osorero, the little tiny church there, and this whole group of German folks were in there singing, and it was just, it wasn't planned, it wasn't anything. They were just in there singing songs. It was so beautiful and magical, and all that, maybe some of that frustration I had with that group kind of went away. And I stopped and I talked to them and heard their story. It was amazing. They've been traveling across the Camino for about 30 years altogether, and had never made it to the end. They'd never gotten to Santiago. They'd been taking buses. Sometimes they'd walk. They had brought their children. Now they had taken grandchildren. And here these group of people, and it's like they're pilgrims. It's like when I heard other people being frustrated with them, I'm like, nope, they're totally, they deserve to be here just like anybody else. And they were finishing that same year for the first time. They were going to make it to Santiago. So you just don't know people's stories until you stop and talk to them, and it's just amazing that you put yourself in that position where you can hear those things and be, like you said, inspired and lifted up, and so you just never know what you're going to come across along the Camino. It's a pretty amazing thing.
I'm interested in knowing path or the trails that you guys take. Is it planned out step by step or town by town where you're going to stop and stay for the night? The fact that you did a walk after your heart attack, how did you feel after that? How much weight did you lose, man? How big were your calf muscles now?
Yeah, my calf muscles were already kind of big. I think I lost about 8 to 9 pounds throughout the whole thing. The path is very well marked, though, by yellow arrows, and I don't really know the significance of the yellow arrows. All along the way, you see these yellow arrows. Sometimes they're built into signs, sometimes they're spray painted on the sidewalk, sometimes they're in little plaques in the ground. In Pamplona, there are these little plaques in the ground that kind of point you along the way. So it's kind of hard to get. You can't get lost, but it's kind of hard to get lost. So you don't really need to be looking at your map all the time. You just need to be looking up and trying to find the yellow arrows. And as you get further along on the trail, they're actually markers. They actually have way markers that are on the side of the road that tell you how many more kilometers you have until you get to Santiago. Those are pretty frequent. So as long as you're following those, pathway's pretty set for you to follow. We say your Camino is your Camino. It's nobody else's. So like where you stop at night kind of depends on the group that you're with or your own objectives. There are lots of guidebooks out there that have like prescribed, here's the 33-day model to do the walk. Here's a 35-day model to do the walk. Here's a 40-day. So there are lots of different ways to do it. There's also a couple of websites, and I don't remember them off the top of my head, but you can actually say, I want to do 15 kilometers a day, and it'll map out the cities to stop in and tell you how many days that's going to be. So there's lots of tools out there for you to use. I got into groups of people because I initially went alone and got into a couple of different groups of people that were kind of traveling all in the same daily pace, not the pace during the day. Everybody's pace walking is different, and that's totally cool. Everybody kind of leaves between 6 and 8 o'clock in the morning from a city, and then whatever time it takes you to get to the next place everyone's decided on, that's how long it takes you. So some people it takes them 5 hours, some people it takes them 9 hours, some like me sometimes, some days. So it just depends on what objectives are. There were also lots of times when people would need a rest day, take a 0 day, and they would just not walk the next day. They would just hang out the town or the city that they were in. Lots of times that happens in the bigger towns like Pamplona and Logroño and Burgos, those bigger cities where there's lots of stuff to do and to see, where you can stop and you can do some things and just kind of take a rest day. The biggest thing for me is, if you're ever thinking about doing the Camino, is schedule 40 days. Just schedule 40 days. And if you use the 40 days, great. If you don't, it's fine. But just tell yourself it's going to take you 40 days. Because that way you can have those chances to like just stop and take it in, what's going on around you, and heal up and do those kind of things.
I think the change in culture would probably be the most interesting, seeing various cultures along the way.
Yeah, that was part of the primary reasons I went, not necessarily to experience Spanish culture, but to meet other people from around the world. So I met people from Israel, Great Britain, Spain, tons of people from Italy, France, Switzerland, a bunch of people from America that I probably would never have met had I not gone on there. So you're inside Spanish culture, but the Camino kind of has its own culture all of its own. and it's beautiful. I heard the Camino is God's way of telling us what we should live like all the time, because it's really about helping other people and encouraging each other and loving on each other and take care of each other's needs. I think it was my 3rd day in, I twisted my knee pretty bad, and I had at least 2 people say, hey, can I carry your backpack? And my backpack was like almost 16, 17 pounds, 18 pounds. And they had their own backpacks to carry. And so people saying, hey, I'll carry your backpack. I'm like, 4 more miles. I'm not going to have you get it'd be horrible. Thank you though. But, and then I had one person that stopped their pace and like just walked with me to make sure I was okay and got to the towns.
That was nice.
Yeah. And it's, and they spoke Spanish. Most of the people spoke Spanish, and everybody took care of each other, and everybody, made sure people were okay. And yeah, it's a very communal thing. And I was talking with a student of mine once before I left, telling her about the trip. And she's like, I could never do that alone. And I said, well, I'm not doing it alone. I just don't know who I'm doing it with yet. And I think if you go into it with that mindset, then it makes it a really easy thing to do.
I have a friend who lives in Hawaii and had always wanted to do the walk, and he did, but he broke it into years. It took him maybe 5 years to finish what he was doing. When we're talking with people who have had strokes, which we are, some of us may not have the ability to do it in a 40-day or 30-day time period, but it's not a race.
Nope.
Nobody is asking you to do something and complete it. Anything that you put on you, you've put on you. Nobody else is setting your pace for you.
Yeah.
So if this is something, there's another thing that somebody had told me, and you would know because you were there. Somebody had told me that not only can people tour by bus or walk, which is the way that, it started, but there are people who have taken bicycles or even horseback.
Yes.
So if some of these ways sound interesting to you and would help you to maybe make this a goal for you to do in your life, don't limit yourself because it sounds like something that's too big.
Yeah. So when you're on the way, when you start, you get a little credential, which is basically just this kind of thick piece of paper that they stamp all along the way. So when you stay at a hostel, you can get a stamp. When you go into a cafe and get a cafe con leche, you can get it stamped. So you can get it stamped in lots of different ways all along. And then when you get done and get to Santiago, there's actually an office there that will give you a certificate of completion. So I know people that I met along the way, especially a lot of Europeans who come and just do that. They do a day, they do 5 days, they do 6 days, and then they go home. Easy for them because they live right nearby and can fly in and fly out. They would keep their credential with them, and the next time they came, they would use the same credential. So whenever they finally get to Santiago, they can turn it all in and say that they've walked what they needed to walk. You only need to walk 100 kilometers to get their credential, 200 if you're biking, I think. But we experienced bikes. We experienced a lot of bikes. We also experienced when we got to Sarria that a lot of horses. But then again, for my partner, she came and met me in Sarria, which was about 117 kilometers outside of Santiago, and she got a Compostela. So there's about seven to 9 routes that you can take. 80% of the people that get those certificates do the French way, which is the path from Saint Jean Pied de Port to Santiago de Compostela. 80% of the people that do that only do those last 5 stages from Sarria to Santiago, the 117 kilometers. There's lots of different ways to do it. You could start in Logroño. You could start in Burgos. You don't have to do the whole 790 kilometers. You can do what's available to you. And a lot of people do those last 100 kilometers, and that's fine. It's a little bit difficult coming in after being out there for 24, 25 days, and then have all these people that are like, hey, I'm on the Camino, yay. It's just like, yeah, no, you need to go shut up right now.
The pain hasn't quite left
it's
your
their
body
Camino, and
yet.
they're doing it and they're having fun. Yeah. It's like, oh, talk to me in 3 days, But yeah, everybody's Camino is different, and there's lots of different ways to do it, and that's the beauty of it, right? And anything that you might put on a bucket list, that you can do those things the way you want to. There are no prescribed ways to do it. There's no prescribed bucket list that everybody has to check off. Whatever it is you decide to put on that list of things to do, those are your things. You need to be passionate about them and want to get them crossed off. And it's like we were talking earlier, Joanne, is if you have a list and you physically check those things off and you say, I can complete them, there's a lot of pride and self-worth to be found in that. And I think that that's really what my intention is right now, is to just try try to promote to people as much as possible. Live with intention, decide what you want to do and who you want to be known as, and go out there and do it. I can't tell you what that is. I can give you some ideas of things that I've done. I have a podcast that I have where I bring on people that have done their own things on their bucket list. A lot of them I don't want to do or have any thought of doing. I had a woman that raised $1 million for charity through her own artwork. And it's just like, okay, that's something I'm never going to do, but I'm sure glad that she did it, right? And I'm sure
I think
glad
that may pique Bob's interest because he's a musician and an artist, and so he loves doing that type of stuff. And he's also very passionate about helping other people. Yeah, you never know the lives that you're going to teach.
right.
But listening to what you're saying, one of the things that we were taught when we were very, very, very young was to color within the lines. And I think that has lived with most of us for a long time. You have to give yourself permission to say, okay, I learned where the lines are, but I'm giving myself permission to step beyond that.
Yeah, and I liken it to civil disobedience, right? It's like there are rules, there sure are rules, and you want to, as long as you're not hurting anybody by going outside of those lines, go for it. And I think you're just right on, Joanne, that it's, I grew up definitely with a father that, you painted with inside the lines. But I also know that like deep down in his heart, like every time I did something crazy, he was cheering me on. He wouldn't go crazy about it or scream at the top of his lungs, but he never like condemned me for doing that. And I think that's because he wanted to see me. He wanted to do those things. We all do, right? And that's one of the things about bucket lists. Sometimes I tell people, it's like, don't tell everybody about what's on your list. Don't just don't tell everybody because not everybody wants the same things or can do the same things that you can, or they're afraid themselves to do them. And so you probably have enough negative talk with inside yourself about what your limits are and what your limitations are. You don't need to be letting other people be a part of that conversation too and reinforcing that negative talk. So I say, talk about bucket lists with people. I think that's important. So you can hear what other people have on their lists and the reasons why they put things on their list. I think can help you expand your bucket list. But like really, like, because even with the Camino, I told some people are like, gosh, you just had a heart attack. You're not going to be, well, is that a smart thing to do? It's like, I don't know. Doctor said I could, so I'm going to, so I'm going. And I think that you do have to be protective of who you allow in your heart. Doesn't mean that you have to like shun people, but like the deep things that you're excited about or you want to do, hold those tight and tell the people that love you and that care about you and want the best for you. You know who those people are, and share them with them. And then everybody else you can just wait, tell them after you've done it. Yeah, I did that. You did that? Okay. You take that away from them, the ability to tell you not to. So I think that's important sometimes.
You know who comes to mind, Joanne? Eddie DeRolay, one of our group members. This guy, a stroke survivor, just loves to walk, and his story was incredible. And as soon as I heard about this, he was the first one I thought of.
You're absolutely right. Eddie walks every day. He walks in the mall predominantly, but he walks outside as well. And he has 20,000 miles of walking.
Yeah.
Are beyond anything that we could ever consider. And he just started doing it. He got up one day and said, I'm not going to sit still. And he's motivated and inspired so many people just by who he is.
Again, it's the Camino is great for that because you, like you said, you can break it into little chunks. You don't have to do 15 to 18 miles a day. You could do 7 miles a day if you want to, and do a week, come back a year later and do another week. People ask me all the time, how much did you train? And there's nothing that can prepare you for 15 to 18 miles a day, right? You just kind of have to like teach your body how to do it. And basically the best way to do that is just to go do the walk. Carrying a backpack is also something that you have to do. It's, my backpack was probably too big, too heavy, but I'm American, so I'll take some grace for that. Working with a backpack, of just like walking with a backpack, I think that it takes some getting used to, especially for a long distance. But the other thing is you can actually get your backpack picked up at your hostel in the morning and taken to your next hostel for €5 a day, right? So you never have to carry your backpack. And I think that that's the key to almost anything, right? There's always options. If you research and you look at things, whatever it is that you're excited about or passionate about and what you want to do, there's always ways to get it done. There's always somebody that'll want to help. It's just a matter of going out there and finding those resources and doing that research to make sure you can figure out how to get it done. But there's always people that want to help. There's a great documentary on Amazon. I'm pretty sure it's Amazon Prime, called I'll Push You. And it's actually two best friends, one who is wheelchair bound and the other one pushed him across the Camino. If it's something that's in your heart and you're passionate about it and you want to do it, there's a way. There's absolutely a way that you can get it done. You just have to start asking questions, right? I think that's the next step after you make a bucket list and you decide an item. Like that's what I had to do is I said, okay, I'm going to cross this off. It's big, it's hairy, audacious goal. I'm going to get this Camino thing off my list because it's been on there for too long. So what did I do? I made another list of all the things that I needed to do to make the Camino happen for me. I create a budget. I had to figure out the timing. I had to ask for vacation. I had to buy equipment, to make a whole other list of things to accomplish that goal. And if you do that and you think, oh, so what is it going to take? If I need to use a walker or I need to use poles or a cane, what do I need personally to do or to get it scheduled so that I can accomplish this task?
A lot of times, if you can talk to other people who have already completed this trip, sharing here, I mean, this is wonderful information. Summer is coming. People are going to be wanting to get out and to do things. Is there a particular time that seems better as far as they talk about the rain in Spain?
Yeah. You can walk the Camino year round. I have a friend who's done it twice in the winter and she loves it because there's barely anybody out there. She likes the snow and the cold. It's not really me. I did it in August. I think we had a couple days that were in the 110s, 120s. Wow. It was super, super hot. Everybody will probably say like May, June, July are probably the best times to do it, but a lot of people also like doing it in the fall. A little bit more rainy, but still not as hot. But yeah, it's just, again, it's like, what do you like? What do you like my friend, she's done it twice in the winter. And I'm just like, I just could never do that in the winter time. Just no way I would do that. She loves it. She absolutely loves it. So yeah, early summer and fall are probably the best times.
And I think you're right, because a lot of people are taking medications and being in weather that is really, really hot can affect them. So that's something to put on your bucket list to at least ask your doctors if you're considering doing something like this. How do I plan and set it up?
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I think as stroke survivors, we kind of have to narrow the scope as to what we can do and what we can put on our bucket list. I don't think I could ever do that walk, but I can go out and walk in the yard and, take my dog for a walk. And Eddie DeRelay, when we had him on, he got me so motivated to walking that I went over, started walking on a treadmill, and man, I about wrenched my back here for about 2 weeks. So I kind of slacked off a little bit from the walking part, but
I have friends that are like, will you do it again? I'm like, I don't think so.
I was going to ask you that.
I loved it. I love the experience. To your point, Bob, I think that I've had a lot of people like, oh, well, what's next? Is the AT next, the Appalachian Trail, or the Continental Divide, or the PCT? And it's like, nope, I don't want to do any of those things. I just absolutely don't. And I know I'm not physically capable. If I had struggled on the Camino, I know I'm going to massively struggle doing one of those through hikes. But the thing that I do have on my bucket list is that on each of those trails, they have what they call trail angels, people that are just kind of randomly out there giving away food or giving away water or fixing equipment or something like that. So one of the things I have on my bucket list is I want to be a trail angel for a week on each one of those trails through the summer, and just set up some kind of base camp where hikers can come through and get equipment fixed, get medical attention, get a good meal, get rehydrated, have a shower, just like so you have a super angel, trail angel base camp with lots of different people doing lots of different tasks for hikers. I'll never be what they call Triple Crown through hiker, but I could be a triple crown, trail angel. I think that would be fun. So it's how do you modify those things, right, that you like and you enjoy and you're into to match your abilities.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I don't think it's to me, it's not a limitation, right? I mean, it's limiting to say I'm never going to be a triple crown through hiker, but I'm okay with that, because if I could be a triple crown trail angel, that would be just like, that's really unique. I mean, it's unique to be a triple crown through hiker, but it's even more unique to be able to say I'm a triple crown, trail angel, and you get to be able to explain that to people and the impact that you would have on serving others during that time. It just takes a mindset adjustment of like, what's valuable to you? How can you participate? And maybe not at the same level everybody else is, but how can you participate in a way that makes you feel good? And I think that that's the biggest key is doing things that make you feel good, bring you joy, and figuring out what you can do with your abilities to make those things happen.
I apologize for laughing when you mentioned about the trail angels and the food and all that other stuff. I thought you were going to say that you were going to go from one trail angel to the next to get the food. You can tell what my motivation.
Well, yeah, I want to get a chef. I want to get a couple chefs out there that like really know how to cook food outdoors and like serve some like intensely spectacular meals to hikers that haven't seen people in 3 days, right? I just think that would be so much fun and bring joy, and I can do that. I don't think I can do the whole hike myself, but if I can make somebody else's hike even for a day a little bit better, I think that'd be fun.
We know now where you're going with what you've done, and we'll talk about what your future plans are. But tell us who you are. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in the Midwest, conservative household, got married very young, had children very young, and moved my family around a little bit from California to Ohio, back to Indiana. My parents have been married for 58 years before my father passed. Not the most affectionate, loving people in the world, but kind, caring. And so for me, a lot of that need to be cared for and loved on spilled over into what I did for work. What I did for about 35 plus years, I ended my youth development teaching career as a specialist for a program called TRIO, which if you're not familiar with it, it's been around through the federal government grant system since the mid 60s. And I was part of the Upward Bound program, where we helped young students that were first generation or low income succeed in high school, get accepted to college, and be successful in college. And I liked it. For me, I wanted to start setting boundaries between work-life balance in the United States. Boundaries where we say, okay, I've sold you my 40. I did my 40. The rest is mine, which includes the mental health side of things, physical side of things that can just eat into those other hours that are beyond the time that you sell. Because for every minute that work eats into that time, you're losing money. You're devaluing the labor that you sold already. And so I really want to encourage people to figure out what those boundaries are out here trying to promote to people. And I think part of that is to finding your self-worth outside of your job or who you sell your labor to, right? The question we always ask each other when we first meet each other is, what do you do? For some, it might be, I'm retired. For some, but even then, if you answer, I'm retired, what's the next thing is, well, who do you work for? How long do you work for them? What do you do for them? Yeah, it's your value and your self-worth is still tied into what you did all that time. And for me, I came back from the Camino and I made a Instagram reel, like a short video of just a bunch of selfies. It was just like a slideshow of all the selfies that I'd taken with people that I met along the way. And I showed it to a friend of mine that I worked with for about 4.5 years. After she was done watching it, she looked at me, she goes, I've never seen you that happy. What do you mean you've never seen? I've worked with you for 4.5 years. You've never seen me that happy? She goes, nope, I've never seen you that happy. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't want anybody to meet me or know me that doesn't know me that happy. And so I quit my job and I said, okay, I'm gonna do things this next year that just make me happy. And so that's what I've been trying to do.
I never thought of looking at what I made and the jobs that I had as far as the money, that I had the value here. I'm willing to sell this to you. It was kind of like, okay, what you're offering, can that pay for my rent and my food? I'll be fine. I had it backwards.
Maybe not backwards, but like, to me, it's just like evening the playing field. Okay, great. You get your corporation, you give me benefits, you give, you do these things for me, fine. but I also do things for you. And that needs to be recognized in that value of that labor. And so, I think that's why we're seeing this great resignation play out, is because people are like, I'm done, like nurses, or like, I'm done like being so tired when I come home at the end of the day that like I can't play with my kids, or people that are putting in a lot of mental hours at work that spill over, and so they can't stop thinking about what they did that day or what's coming up the next day. Those are hours that you're putting towards that labor, and it's eating into the time that you have that you could be doing other. For me, I found myself just sitting on the couch watching TV all the time. Brain was so tired after talking so much during the day, and helping people, and found myself I couldn't do a whole lot more than just sit on the couch. They binge watched all of Netflix. It's probably not going to be on anybody's headstone. And so I just wanted my life to represent something else, even if it's just for the 4 or 5 people around me that really care about me, love me. I want them to be affected by the fact that I want to promote to them that they should go out and do things too, and have their life be measured by what they do and who they're with, instead of how they sell their labor.
That's a great story. The fact that you realized you wanted to reach your dreams because somebody said you actually look happy. When your coworker said, "First time I've seen you look happy," when she went through those slides. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and that's
an eye opener.
Yeah, it really was. It was almost sad first time I heard it. When she said it, I was like really kind of sad. I'm like, really, gosh, that really disappoints me that I haven't been showing you how happy I am, because I am typically a happy person. Currently on what I call an adult gap year. And some people that aren't familiar with the term gap year, that's a little bit hard to explain to them sometimes. So I just say, I'm just doing things that make me happy. Just bring me joy. That's all I'm doing this year. And people are like, okay, I can get that.
So with some people who are stroke survivors, because I'm thinking back to where I was when I had my stroke, which was 25 years ago. I was totally paralyzed on one side. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk, I couldn't see straight. And I'm back to full health. But it took a long time, and it was a lot of work to get to that point. And there may be people that are watching this that are in the first stages of recovering. No guarantee that they will or how far they will come. But from listening to this and finding out what a beautiful walk the Camino is, maybe when they're putting their list together, maybe they'll never be on a plane and fly across the pond and do something like this. But it doesn't mean that they cannot join in. The movie, The Way, is that what it is? Yeah.
Yes.
It's been out with several years, but it was a really nice movie, I thought. And they would be able to watch that and in some way be able to join and be a part of that walk.
Yeah, there's that. There's also lots of Facebook groups that people can join where people are sharing their Caminos as they walk across the way. People can get engaged in that way. And sometimes every once in a while someone says, hey, I lost my wallet. I need, can you all give me $20? And everybody kind of pitches in to make sure that they're taken care of. And there's communities out there you can be involved in and not actually have to do the activity. But I also think that there are lots of things locally that you can do, right? There are walks and 5K walks and stuff around that are important as well. And I also think that, my bucket list is my bucket list, right? I have some things on there. I have some trips. I have some adventurous stuff, but I also have stuff that's like relationship building things where I need to go back and fix some things with some people that I haven't fixed yet. There's some people that I've lost along the way as far as not being able, not communicating with them anymore that I need to reconnect with. There are things that I would like to learn how to cook. Your bucket list doesn't have to be these grand adventures. There's things that are out of your realm of capability. You can decide to have a bucket list that is just for you, that meets your abilities, and that you can accomplish things, right? And it's not always necessarily you have to do them yourself either. Like the cooking one, I have a friend that has a cooking bucket list that's just items that are about cooking. That's great. And And if you don't have the total ability to cook, maybe you have the ability to be there and with the person while they do it, and that you're learning, right? You have the ability to still learn and learn what they're doing and how they're doing it, helping you make those recipes, and you probably enjoy them when they're done, finished making them. So I think that you have to, it goes back to that drawing with inside the lines that you said, Joanne. It's like you have to think outside the box when you're creating a bucket list, right? You have to think outside the bucket, I guess is the best way to put that. But you gotta think outside the bucket, right? And what are some of the things you can do? What are the things that you can do with help? That's there's lots. That was the hardest thing for me, is even when I was on the Camino, was asking for help or receiving help. And because you always want to do things yourself, you always want to accomplish them yourself. So being in community with other people and allowing them to help you is a beautiful thing, not just for you, but for them too. I think you need to look at it from that perspective too. Is that, man, if I had a cooking buddy, how great would that be to have a cooking buddy to do some of the things that I'm not able to do, but help me do the things that I can. And so I think it's a matter of really, like you were talking about, thinking outside that bucket, and how do you make a list that's uniquely yours and that you can get excited about, and figure out whatever it takes, whatever help you need, whatever it takes to get it done.
Roger, how does somebody get into your podcast?
Podcast is available everywhere. It's called the Crossing It Off podcast, and you can find it on all the major services: Apple, Spotify, and Overcast, and all those places. It's on YouTube. It's also on Facebook Mobile. Great show, especially if you're looking for inspiration. I interview one person every week who has crossed a different item off their bucket list, and I just talk to them about how they did it, why they did it, what else they want to do, and it's all different kinds of people, all different kinds of walks of life. So it's intended to be inspirational, but also the nice thing is at the end, in the show notes, we have resources for people if they want to try those things to put on their bucket list and cross them off. They can find resources to help them with that. So yeah, it's a nice little show, and I'm having a wonderful time doing it. I love talking to people and helping share their stories.
Jane Blanchard wrote a book about the walk for women who were planning on doing the walk by themselves, or what they can expect for whatever their needs are.
And I would definitely encourage women do the Camino solo. It's very safe. Lots of people. It's never talked to a woman that did it solo that was disappointed or frustrated.
The folks that you met on your trip, do you still stay in touch?
Yes, to some of their chagrin, I think. So far, I think I've seen 13 or 14 pilgrims that I walked with at one point or another. Yes, I definitely, and in today's world, we can, right? In today's world, there's just no reason why you can't keep in touch if you want to, if both parties want to do that.
Besides doing something as major as the adventure of the Camino, what do you have on your list that you're looking forward to?
I just got knuckle tattoos.
I wasn't going to bring that up. I wasn't sure if I should bring that up.
It's totally fine. So I've been tattooing for about 25 years, and mostly all on my arms, nowhere else. Knuckles are pretty much seen all the time. And so I knew that if I was going to put something on my knuckles, it would be something that I was really comfortable with. And so I decided what that was about 5 years ago, and finally just got those done.
Now, you cannot sit there with your hands down where we can't see that.
I don't know if you can read it. It says, "Do no harm."
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm gonna finally cross off visiting all 50 states this year. I only got 2 left, specifically Alaska, with some of my friends from the Camino. We have a small group that has gone on vacation a couple times together already. Outside my normal one, that's just concerts I want to go to, bands I have not yet seen in my lifetime and that I want to see before they get bad and can't really rock anymore. So
that is excellent. I really believe that the more you can see of different states and different countries and share that with the people that live there, it changes your point of view of the
for
world.
sure. Yep.
Well, I hope that we've inspired a lot of people to think about their own bucket list and what they can do, no matter what their abilities are. There's a message that we can leave with the people that are watching this show. Never stop living.
Mm-hmm.
Amen. Yep, for
You
sure.
can make it out there and still be a part of the world.
They should be actionable items, right? Doesn't mean you don't need help with them. It doesn't mean that you don't, you may not need some kind of assistance, to get them crossed off, but they need to be able to be crossed off in some form or fashion. And that will give you that self-worth that you're looking for to keep going and to live fully and intensely with what you have to offer the world.
Is there anything else that you would like to add before we say goodbye?
No, I think I'm good. I appreciate the time and the space. I'm very honored to be here, and I hope that in some way I've motivated some of your listeners to figure out what's next for them as far as what they want to do and to go out and do it.
Bob, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, it's just been very interesting. I'm looking forward to checking you out on your podcast.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you too.
Bye, everybody. Don't count us out ever.
With every small victory towards recovery, a sense of hope filters through. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to our channel. We would love to hear from you. And please tell your friends about our show. Don't ever quit. You are not victims. We are survivors.